Sheikh, for being here and answering some of the concerns.
Thank you for your association for the invitation. Firstly, my apologies for the delay. I was at another engagement at the Fijian where we had the Fiji Nursing Association. They had their annual general meeting today too. So there's quite a few hundred of them actually in a room, so it was a bit difficult to get away from there. But look, thank you for the invitation. As you would have, as your president has mentioned, that the budget was in fact approved yesterday, the revised or the mini budget from the budget that was delivered in July of last year. Our financial year, as you know, is from the 1st of August to the 31st of July. And the fact that we had delivered a budget last year in the middle of COVID, when the vaccination rate was extremely low in Fiji, the borders in fact weren't open, there had been lockdowns, schools had actually been closed, and therefore we had announced at that point in time that should the circumstances change, and indeed the circumstances warranted, then we would have a revised budget. And that's precisely what happened. As you know, since the 1st of December, the borders are now open. We have tourists coming back, schools have opened up, a lot more businesses have opened up or are beginning to flourish. So it required an adjustment to the budget. A lot of these adjustments you would have heard in the budget itself. Some of it, of course, is to do with finance. A lot of it is to do with a number of or series of changes to the law that enables the economy to move or open up a lot more liberally, in a lot more transparent, but more so in a more easier, less bureaucratic manner. So you would have heard in the budget that we announced about the driving schools, how now that you have the 3 and the 5-year licenses that are given to you, that will be just that. You won't require annual renewal as you have currently required. So that gives certainty to your business. It gives you certainty to the 3-year license, the 5-year license. And also there was a request in respect of businesses being given some type of waiver from operating from home, because a lot of the businesses, in fact the driving schools are single owner operations. And that will be considered, but the 2 ones that have already been approved is in respect of your licenses. It is actually quite similar in vein to what we've done in other areas. So for example, before, if you had a liquor license, you had to get an annual renewal of that. If you had a hotel license, you had to get an annual renewal of that. That has changed now. You can get up to 5 years. People used to sell cigarettes or suki had to do it on an annual basis, which is actually very difficult. So people every year had to make the effort, turn up to the Ministry of Health. If they had to renew for example, or update their business details, turn up to the company's office. It was actually quite bureaucratic, it was problematic, cost of business was high. So we are doing throughout, similarly in other areas of the law, where we are amending those provisions. A lot of the laws we actually do have in place, for example, even to do with town and country planning, have been, will be amended. Some have changed. Some of the laws, in fact, go back as old as 1946. But the laws have, in fact, not been amended. Technology has changed. The technology we use, digital communication, the ability to make submissions online, all of that was not taken into account in the laws in those days, and of course expectedly, because that technology did not exist then. But now it does. So therefore we need to catch up. And so that's part and parcel of what we have done in the mini budget. Just overall in respect of the economy, and I think it's critical for you to know, because you're major players, you may not necessarily be seen right at the forefront of it, but I think the fact that you provide a very critical service in terms of people being able to learn to drive. As you know, some of you are old enough to know, 20 years ago, the amount of cars we had in Fiji is far less than what it is today. And particularly in the past 15 years or so, the number of cars on the road has grown exponentially. It's kind of, just mushroomed out of nowhere. And that is, of course, to do with the fact that our economy grew 9 years straight in a row. Our GDP doubled within that period, and GDP per capita, of course, doubled also almost, from $7,000 to $13,000 in average earnings. Various tax incentives were put in place, duties were drastically cut, so more people could buy cars. Before, for some places you go, it was a big deal to have a car. The mode of transportation has changed. A lot more people drive private cars, and so obviously they need to learn how to drive those things. Less people travel, by public transportation. So the dynamics of the transport sector, of course, has changed quite significantly. The quality of roads have changed, and for the better. You did not have this Denarau back road before. This was built. In fact, when we were originally building this, we looked at what we could do, and there were some slight design changes we did make because of various climatic conditions. But if you go to countries like Singapore, the main highway near the airport, if you take out all the pot plants, it could be used as an alternative runway, emergency runway. In fact, that was the original plan for this. But because of various climatic conditions, we had Cyclone Winston, and Winston, cost us over $500 million in repairing. We lost 1/3 of the value of our GDP within 36 hours. So climate change is a very significant issue. So a lot of these changes have taken place, and what we're also doing in terms of responding to what the global economy is going through, we made a number of announcements, in respect of VAT, taking VAT off those 21 items. There's no point saying we'll do it over 6 items, because you can't just survive on kerosene and flour and cooking oil. So if you look at the range of products where you got zero rated on VAT, you can actually have a meal. You have tin fish, you have flour, you have garlic, potatoes, onions, etc. And if you have have some bele or bhaji or bhindi or boda, you can actually have a good meal out of that. So that was the purpose of it. People do need toothpaste, soap, washing powder, sanitary pads, all those sorts of things are essential in a household. So that's why we did a comprehensive list. Of course, by putting 21 items, it meant that government overnight would lose from the 1st of April $165 million that gets sucked out of the government revenue. So this is why, again, we've increased the VAT on certain other items, because to be responsible, you can't just be, a lot of people think it's election year, it's gimmick, but we have to be responsible as to how we manage our finances. So VAT has gone up. They're staying at hotels. A hotel before you paid 9% VAT and 5% ECAL. Now ECAL is gone, you simply pay 15%. So it's a 1% increase. But things like perfumes, watches, stereos, some of the machineries, etc., it's gone up to 15%. So that helps us mitigate the revenue loss. The other, of course, reduction in duty has been on fuel. During COVID, at one point in time, the price of fuel was US about $23 a barrel. Today it's $140 a barrel. And from what we can see in terms of the forward pricing, is going to go up even more. So be prepared for that. So in anticipation of that, we've taken away the 20 cents. That's cost us immediately $56 million. So these things come at a cost. And like I said, we've increased VAT on some of the other items. We believe that will mitigate some of those risks in terms of the revenue reduction. But we're also waiting for the volume to return. Just talking to some people from the hotel industry, the end of March looks good. For some of the hotels, April and May look good, and even right up to June. So that should make up for the loss that we currently have. So essentially, ladies and gentlemen, we've done a number of other things, like town and country planning laws and regulations will be changed. We have a situation, for example, in certain areas, even in Nadi, where people used to have basically residential housing. People used to have homes. Some people now want to, build a small shop. So for them to get a shop, they have to apply for commercial zoning. So they may do it individually. They apply for that. They have to go through a particular process. And then, 6 months later, 2 houses down, somebody else wants to make it into a retail store. They have to go through the entire process again. So what we said, areas that are beginning to develop or have vastly developed as commercial areas, we'll just have that entire area declared as commercial. Commercial and residential, a mixture. Of course not industrial, which is different. So people don't have to go and individually apply each time to get it converted from residential to commercial. I can tell you there's various parts in Nadi where it's a mixture of residential and commercial. So if it is a mixture, let's have it all declared residential and commercial. So you don't have to individually go and apply each time, individually do a traffic impact assessment, individually do an EI, individually go and do all the other sort of zoning applications. You try to ease things from that perspective.
We've of course continued with many other programs of poverty alleviation. We're increasing it by a one-off payment by $50. All the famous 360 that people received, the 2 rounds of 360, the $90, the $50 was only applicable in Wiki level, except those who were in the FNPF scheme and the funds had finished. We then paid $225 a fortnight, and then the 360 came on board for them also. So we've got some funds allocated for the people in Vanuatu. In fact, and some of your members may be there, I'm not sure. But they will also be, positively impacted upon a one-off payment of $100. The medical system has been vastly changed now. As you know, last year we said the people who normally would go to a health center or normally would go to a hospital because they could not afford to go and see a private doctor could now go and see a private doctor. And we'll pay your fees for you. And we then call for expressions of interest from private doctors, the GPs, and a lot of them, put in expression of interest. Some of them, of course, they thought government is paying for it, so they increased their prices. So we did not accept them. We accepted the ones who were competitively priced. We again have advertised a lot more doctors will be added to that list, which makes things easier for people. But one of the problems was that if you went to a doctor, a private doctor, and we paid the fees, but if the doctor wanted to do some a diabetes test, or wanted to do a urine test, or wanted to do an ECG, or wanted to give you a nebulizer, wanted to give some oxygen, he could not or she could not because it was not within the scheme. So now we've expanded that. So from next week again, when you go and see a GP, all of those facilities will be available to you without you having to pay the cost of it. Of course, if you were wealthy enough to go to them in the first place, you still have to pay the fees. This is more for the people who actually could not afford it in the first place. Now, what that simply means, and this is critically important because health is a very emotional issue, is that if you have a doctor in your area with a GP that you go and see constantly, they can also monitor your health. They may say to you, look, I've done your sugar, it's slightly going over 5, do something about your health, monitor it. As opposed to you not getting it checked, and you end up with high level of diabetes, end up in hospital getting a toe or your foot amputated. Because that's what's happening. You need to get into preventative health care. And similarly, your cholesterol is slightly high, look after it, eat less meat or whatever, eat fatty food, otherwise you might get a heart attack, calcium buildup. So those are the kind of things that we're doing, so that's been expanded. We also have expanded now to the dentist area, because there's been a long queue because of COVID. So if you go to a private dentist, whoever gets approved, they can extract your tooth, they can do permanent filling, temporary filling, and consultation. So that'll also be part of the scheme that we enroll. So in a way, we're revolutionizing the health system, which is critically important. Which helps you too, because a lot of your customers hopefully will be a lot more healthier. They have more money to spend. Because, a lot of people may be reluctant to come and use the services because they say, who's going to pay for it? So I might get my uncle to teach me in the backyard. But if people have a bit more money in their pocket, then obviously they'll be able to spend on these types of things. So, in a nutshell, where we're seeing the economy going now, there are a couple of challenges that we have, globally speaking. The first one is that you'll continue to see the price of things rise because of the freight issue, because driven by pandemic. There's been a supply chain shortage. These phones that we all carry, it has a chip in it. The raw material used for that is in short supply, so therefore people still demand phones, high demand, low production. So in the same way, Yangon before Winston was $85 a kilo, after Winston became $185 a kilo. Some people still drank it at the same rate. But the fact is that these are the things that's affecting it. Ukraine war has a huge impact, of course, on oil and gas. That part of the world produces a lot of gas, cooking gas. And so now if that supply chain is stopped, there'll be less gas available in the world. Countries like Qatar still extract gas, but high demand, and therefore the price will go up. We expect this to go on. If you leave aside the war in Ukraine, we expect the prices to continue at least for the next 6 months or so. And then it should level off, in particular with the freight. Some of the routes on the freight has gone up by 800%. I was talking to somebody the other day, one of the specialized containers they bring. Before, from New Zealand, used to get about 5,500. For the same type of freight they're paying now, $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. the same route. So obviously they will pass it on to you. They'll pass it on to the consumer. And that should be able to be rationalized in the next 6 to 9 months. So that's one of the challenges. The other challenge for us, obviously, as a government, is climate change. And a lot of people don't realize how much money it actually costs us. I mean, if you've driven recently between Nadi and Singatoka, Kambisi, the entire highway went. It was a big hole in the highway. Near Semo, one line went. Near Nawai, one lane went, sorry. Various other parts in Fiji, and that costs a lot of money. And this is why we've been, our Prime Ministers internationally, we talk about climate change, we talk to the World Bank and ADB. And as a result of those types of communications and representations we made over the years, we're now getting loans from the World Bank, what we call under the IDA fund, at 0% interest rate. Only a service fee of 0.75%. That loan is payable over 40 years with a 10-year grace period. So by the time you actually pay that loan, in fact 53% of that becomes a grant. A lot of people don't understand that. Dina or karza or zada. But they don't understand that. Similarly, we borrowed from the Japanese. It's 0.01%. 40-year term, 10-year grace period. In fact, the loan component becomes only 40%, 60% becomes a grant, payable over that period of time. So those are kind of smart strategic things that we have done in respect of mitigating risks. One thing that we have done also in this particular COVID period is, because tourism actually used to generate about $2 billion of revenue for us. But it was also the largest industry that brought in the largest amount of foreign currency into Fiji. Now, for us to be able to trade, every single thing that we have nearly in Fiji, I'm holding this mic, lady's wearing the watch, the shoes she's wearing, all the cars parked outside, is all imported. The flour you eat is imported, which everybody eats on a daily basis. Apart from the bele and the dalo and cassava and bhaji and bindi and all of that, everything else is imported in Fiji. Even your onions and potatoes and your garlic is all imported. Even the cooking oil is all imported. You need to have foreign currency to be able to buy these things from overseas. So the sign of any good government is that an international benchmark is you should have at least 3 months worth of foreign currency to be able to trade internationally. We have 8 months worth of foreign currency, despite the fact that we lost $2 billion in foreign currency earnings. Now, why? Because affected by tourism sector. Why have we still got 8 months worth? Because we actually decided to borrow more from overseas because of the interest rate. But also when you borrow more from overseas, it's foreign money that comes in. So it does two things. One is that your foreign reserves goes up, and secondly, it's new money coming into the system. It's not Fijian money, it's new money coming to the system. So liquidity becomes higher in the banks. And when the economy is depressed and you know it's going to open, when the economy opens up, business people and others will want to go and borrow. And if there's a lot of money in the banks, when the banks lend to you, the interest rate will be low. It's very simple. It's just having a good sort of financial sense of things. So that's the position we are in at this point in time. Challenge, of course, for us is climate change. We don't know what's going to happen. The cyclone season has not technically ended. We're not only getting cyclones, we're obviously getting periods where it just rains. That's expensive for us. There are about 200, crossings and bridges that need to be fixed up. Roads, of course, need to be, maintained in a very, regular manner. Apart from that, of course, God forbid, if there's another type of pandemic that comes out, nobody knows now. Nobody expected in the 21st century that the borders of the entire world will be shut off. Nobody expected that. The entire world is, fell into a shock. Trillions of dollars literally were pumped into the economies like UK, USA, Japan, etc. So they kept the economies buoyant. We pumped in $500 million by, unemployment benefits, etc. Can you imagine if we had not done that? When the economy is already shrinking, and then if we, for example, cut civil service pay by 10%, do you know what's the wage bill we have every year we pay civil service? $1.1 billion. That's our wage bill. Police, Lands Department, all these other people, all the entities that we pay money to, all of them, correction services, etc. $1.1 billion. If we took out 10% from that, that means we'd have sucked out 110% $110 million from the economy. It was shrunk even more. Because when people have money in their pocket, they spend. If I have $100 now and I keep it to myself, nothing happens. If I give $5 each to all of these ladies here sitting in the front, they'll go and spend that money, somebody else will benefit from it. You need to keep the economy moving from that perspective. The $360 million, the first round paid out was $110 million. You made your application, fill your application form in 3 minutes, on the phone. No lining up the DO's office or poverty alleviation office, wherever. 3 minutes on the phone, when the money is approved, it's paid to you within seconds. You could have paid the entire $110 million in one day, but we didn't because we knew everybody would go and line up to catch the money. So technology has brought about a lot of changes, and we intend to explore those changes and explore further opportunities. We'll soon be, as announced in the budget, we've got a vaccine pass that people will get in terms of to be able to demonstrate, because those of you who want to travel now, you need to show proof that you actually have been vaccinated. And those countries, they no longer accept a piece of paper to say I've been vaccinated. Anybody can forge it. So they need something digitally, and that's what we're doing. We're spending a lot of money in that respect. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, overall, I mean, that's the sort of, in a sort of broad brush way, the economy, the state of the economy where we are at. A lot of good opportunities, we believe, and we just need to be able to stay the course. I'd like to thank all of you who continue to run your businesses. It's very important. There have been various concessional loans, etc. given, so hopefully some of you benefited from that. And we'll continue to do that to strategically ensure that we make business, carrying out business a lot more easier. Sometimes we find that those people who are supposed to implement the law go a bit too much in doing so. We don't necessarily find out what they're doing. So it's good to have these sessions to find out from you. So I'll end up there, but look, thank you for the invitation.